Difference between President Biden, the difference between him and Trump when it comes to classified papers. Biden, while he was working for the Penn State, they might have reached out to him, staffers or members of the intel agencies might have reached out to him and gave them access to classified papers. It was just to get his opinion, probably, most likely. But he, and the intel agencies probably knew about it. As far as the staffers of Biden, they probably knew about it. When they found it, it's still these few papers that were in his file cabinet, they immediately called the FBI and the CIA to make them aware that these archives needs to be put in a skiff. And so President Biden wasn't hiding it. He probably just forgot about that those papers were in his file cabinet at his office. And the difference between him and Trump is that Trump is trying to overthrow. Oh, excuse me. Before I go on to Trump, in my opinion on Trump and the breach of Trump, um, the papers that were found in Biden's garage is during his time as chief and commander. He probably forgets stuff. Everybody forgets stuff. But he has authorization for those papers that were found in his home garage. He's the chief and commander. He might have just forgot to take it with him and just left it by mistake in his garage. But again, he's the chief and commander. He has access to those papers and he can control those papers because he's the chief and commander. Unlike Trump. Now let me get to Trump now, Justice Garland. The difference between Trump and Biden when it comes to these classified archives. Biden, excuse me, Trump is unlike Biden because Trump never accepted his defeat for 2020. He tried to start an insurrection that failed, just like the Brazilian president that's now in Florida quakering for Trump not for the Republicans not to send him back to Brazil to stand trial for a coup d'etat. So Trump is still on that mission of overthrowing the government. He believes in canceling the Constitution and to be anointed and sworn in by expelling Biden out of the Oval Office. Trump believes in an insurrection to this day. He's willing to cancel the Constitution. He's willing to undermine the Union. And he's plotting to overthrow the government every day since he lost. Every day since he's been in Mar-a-Lago. McCarthy took 15 times to vote to get sworn in. But Matt Gaetz and Marjorie Taylor Greene already informed the CIA that behind the scenes, these people, they will be in these committee chairs, but behind closed doors, when the FBI and the CIA and the Pentagon hands over classified archives to the committee members, Matt Gaetz will be trafficking those papers to Mar-a-Lago. The same Nunes that's now in charge of Truth Network for Trump. While Nunes was his chair, when he was sharing the committee, co-chair of the Intel committee that was investing in Trump's collusion with Russian Arctic Energy and Rex Tillerson trying to get Trump to get Russia colluding with Exxon to pump Arctic Energy into Europe, Nunes vetted out the Mueller report by running to Trump when Trump was president at the time. Trump had a pizza party in the White House. He had a pizza party. And Nunes ran over to the White House during that event and spilled all the Intel committee hearings of the Russia collusion investigation, and Trump vetted out the Mueller report. He appointed Christopher Wray, he appointed Bill Barr, and between those two characters, they tied Robert Mueller's hands behind his back with the biggest obstructionist case in American history. But thanks to Nunes, now that he quit just to ingratiate himself in the Truth Network as the CEO of Trump's propaganda platform. See, that's the difference, Justice Garland. Espionage to overthrow the government, espionage to cancel the Constitution, espionage to impose a coup d'etat of a fascist regime. That's the difference between Biden and Trump when it comes to classified papers. And so I informed the FBI and the CIA that behind closed doors, in those committee hearings, these Trumpocrats, these alt-right mega sycophants, Matt Gaetz, Margie Taylor Greene, Boebert, they will be going to Mar-a-Lago and spilling all their guts when it comes to those backdoor hearings. In Congress, they will be spilling all their guts. Even if they got to take classified papers, they will be willing to traffic classified papers to Trump at Mar-a-Lago. And so Trump is using Mar-a-Lago like his White House, like his command and control center for his fascist regime, like he never lost. Like it's supposedly in America, now there's two White Houses, one in Washington and now one in Florida. And that's how Trump is acting, Justice Garland. And if you can't distinguish between the two, then you're blinder than Lady Justice, and deaf and dumb and blind, and never should we be willing a sword of justice as Attorney General if you can distinguish between the two. I hope that the special counsel from The Hague that you appointed, because if Trump tries to overturn a free and fair election, let's say Biden has in 2024 an overwhelming victory again, and Trump tries to undermine it and cause a second insurrection, and him and Steve Bannon calls for a fascist annulment of the Constitution, and if it breaks out a civil war, and if America becomes bogged down in a civil war of Trump, and that has a domino effect. Let me explain to you, Justice Garland. If Trump for 2024 tries to commit a second insurrection, if he goes all out with his white militias attacking the government, and if America becomes embroiled and bogged down in the civil war because of Trump, Putin will take that advantage to attack NATO. He will take that advantage to grow the Russian Federation. And Xi will try to annex Taiwan. And so you start to see, Garland, that we can't have two White Houses at the same time. One alt-right fascist and one democratic and sworn in by the duly elected majority of the nation's population, which is Biden. So Justice Garland, this is a distinguishing here when it comes to classified archives and how Trump is trying to have a second White House confronting the real White House in Washington with his imaginary mega alt-right fascist White House at Mar-a-Lago. There's a difference between Trump and Biden. And so Steve Bannon, Justice Garland, believes in not only dissolving this Constitution in the revolution of civil war, but Steve Bannon believes in doing the same thing in Europe, dissolving the Eurozone Union to usher in fascist Trump leaders. So it's the beginning of World War III, what I'm explaining to you, Justice Garland. Trump will be the Achilles heel that triggers a runaway effect in foreign policy. We can already see what's going on in Brazil. You got the former Brazilian president faking the fact that he needed medical treatment while he was plotting with his supporters to attack the government and overtake it. He plotted to go to Florida for a fake stomach excuse. Oh, my stomach is hurting. While he sits in a hospital knowing that his advisors are keeping up with the unfolding events in Brazil, hoping that he will overtake the government, but it failed. And now he's in Florida, panhandling the Trump, begging him, Trump, and the sycophants of the Trumpocrats in Washington, of representatives in the House and the Senate, to keep him in America and not deport him back to Brazil to stand trial for trying to overthrow the government. So now he's in Florida and he's scared to go back. And now he's quakering by him Between him and Trump, they're in Florida, and Trump is still plotting on how to overtake this government. So there's a difference between President Biden and and this criminal former president despot that we call Trump. There's a difference in the overall totality of the overall picture. And another thing, those archives that he took to Mar-a-Lago might have had to do with my defense capability for the nuclear umbrella of the United Nations and how he jeopardizes my nuclear umbrella for the United Nations to defend all nations from nuclear weapons. So I take that personal. If he had archives of me stashed away in Mar-a-Lago, why he's trying to overthrow this government, why he keeps on bleeding committee members behind closed doors to inform him of private, secret, backdoor committee hearings. He's using Matt Gaetz, Congresswoman Boebert, and Marjorie Taylor Greene, and I think McCarthy, to bleed intel to Mar-a-Lago for he can keep appraised and one step ahead of Biden administration. Because Trump is trying to impose a revolution of his vanity, of his grandeur. He considers himself better than Washington, better than Lincoln. He keeps on repeatedly saying that. And take him for his words of intent. He's basically saying he's going to usher in a revolution at all costs. And so between him and Steve Bannon, they not only pose a threat to the United States Union, but to your European Union. Orbach and the Italian president, I forget her name, how to pronounce her name. She's in the fascist movement. So she's in the same boat with Steve Bannon. When Steve Bannon was talking about Build the Wall Foundation, for Trump supporters to donate to his Build a Wall Foundation, Steve Bannon was using all that money to wine and dine leaders in Europe to spread fascism Trump brand, like in Brazil. That's what Steve Bannon wants to do in Europe. He wants to convince leaders to get on the Trump bandwagon when it comes to global fascism. And now he wants to undermine and dissolve the Union of Europe. Steve Bannon. And if you think Giuliani, Steve Bannon don't stay in close contact with Trump along with Marjorie Taylor Greene and Matt Gaetz, then you're delusional, Justice Garland. And you're ignorant to the facts of reality. And you don't deserve to be Attorney General if you ignore the truth and nothing but the truth. So help us goodness. So, there's a difference there, Justice Garland, when it comes to high compartmentalized, top secret papers. There cannot be two White Houses in this country. One imposter, one trumpery, one that likes to trump up things like Trump has done so far. In Spanish, there's a saying for this. Caripelao tramposo. Tramposo. So, at the end of the day, Justice Garland, understand, Trump will still hide and stash classified papers. These committee representatives in Congress will still leak out intel to Trump. They will still traffic high compartmentalized top secret archives. They will still bleed intel into Trump's ears. And Trump is strategizing on how to overthrow Biden's administration or any candidate that was to challenge him for 2024. And at all costs, Trump will try to annul the Constitution if he doesn't win. And he will try to impose his regime of fascism on this republic. And between him and Steve Bannon is not only dying to sever the Union into a Trump revolution, but he also wants to do the same thing in Europe. So there's a difference between President Biden leaving papers in his garage while he's president of the United States. He has authority, even though he's forgetful and everybody forgets things. I forget I leave the house. I forget I leave my wallet in the house. I forgot I leave things in the house when I'm in a rush. That's a difference. That's an innocent, forgetful incident. But Trump, it is a conspiracy, it is a racketeering, it is a coup d'etat, it is a criminal organization to overthrow this government that should be outlawed. January 6th, Justice Garland should have forced the Justice Department to outlaw Trump from ever seeking public office. He should have been outlawed from ever seeking public office for his crimes. But the Justice Department likes to drag their feet. But in the midst of World War III, if Trump unleashes a domino effect, I care not about Justice Garland, in your opinion. If you like to sleep at the wheel, do it at your own peril. Because if Trump is the Achilles heel that breaks this union apart and unravels us into a civil war, and then the world is dragged into a conflict of World War III because Europe, with Steve Bannon, tries to spread fascism in Europe and in South America with this Brazilian president, then Justice Garland, you can be removed from your little prestigious position as Attorney General. If you're not willing to uphold the Union, if you're not willing to uphold the Bill of Rights and defend the popular vote of this nation, then you will be dismissed from your position as a servant. Lady Justice is not supposed to be deaf. And if you got deaf ears, Justice Garland, then we will dismiss you as Attorney General. In the midst, if Trump breaks out a civil war, and you're still dragging your feet in the Justice Department, we will dismiss you, Justice Garland. And if for whatever reason, this Steve Bannon, a criminal ring with racketeering, with being the right-hand man of Trump, spreads disorder through the European Union, and it causes an unraveling, unreversible foreign policy effects of nations colliding with each other, if it causes Russia to attack NATO, if Steve Bannon tries to dissolve the Western alliance into a fascist Trump movement, and if Asia is dragged into a conflict because China takes the opportunity moment to take Taiwan, North Korea tries to take South Korea, Japan, Australia gets embroiled confronting China, if Israel attacks Iran, if Pakistan goes to war with India, Justice Garland, you think I'm going to let you stand in my way when I'm the only one that can offer the world a nuclear umbrella? It's beyond your pay grade. It's beyond your preview. It's beyond your jurisdiction of laws and your hypocrisy of deaf ears. Comprehend the difference. And while you appointed this attorney from The Hague, I wish the attorney good luck, because if these events unravel for 2024, definitely Trump should be tried at The Hague. And if I'm the only one that can offer the world a nuclear umbrella, and Trump likes to take compartmentalized, highly top secret archives of me to Mar-a-Lago, and he interferes with me defending the world from nuclear destruction, I will add that onto the caseload of this attorney when we try Trump at The Hague. If Trump tries to annul the Constitution, if he violates the popular will of the popular vote of this nation, if he tries to impose a coup d'etat, if he unravels a civil war, this union, and that has a domino effect throughout the world, with Trump fascism leading the way, if Trump and his corruption ever jeopardizes me and the nuclear umbrella that I'm offering the United Nations, I want Trump to face the full repercussions of the world backlash and the world rebuking him for who he is. No wonder he got laughed off of the United Nations Assembly floor when he was saying that I would obliterate North Korea off the surface of the earth. Little rocket band best not to make more threats. Trump is ignorant. Trump said about he was telling his advisors, hey, if we bombard a nation with nuclear weapons, can we blame it on another nuclear armed nation? Trump said about South Korea and Japan, hey, in times of nuclear peril, in times of nuclear war, we would abandon y'all if y'all don't pay up. This is why Trump was extorting Europe, Germany for the auto industry, France for the cheese and wines, Canada for the milk, Mexico for the car production assembly lines. Pay up, pay up, pay up. And I'm going to keep extorting and extorting. He didn't say extorting. He said, I'm going to keep on taking in tariff wars. I'm going to keep on taking until I make America great again. Acting like he's too greedy, the god of greed of abomination. Extorting and destroying the world for the love of his greed. And now when it comes to me offering the world a nuclear umbrella for Trump to be his legacy, to say, hey, can we bombard another nation with nuclear weapons and then blame it on another nuclear armed nation? Can we get away with that? For him to stand in the United Nations and say, I would obliterate a country off the surface of the planet. And then in the same tongue said, there has been no better consequential president in American history than me. And then the assembly laughed him off the floor. And he shrugged his face and said, for real, with a stupid look in his face. There's a difference, Justice Garland, between high compartmentalized archives that he keeps on bleeding from these committee hearings and that he took from the White House. He has a racketeering mission to overthrow and impose a fascist coup d'etat. He's given refuge to a Brazilian former president that lied under the false pretenses to go to Florida to seek medical attention while his supporters triggered a coup d'etat. And now he's afraid to leave Florida. This is Trump-branded vanity of, I came down those golden escalators, Trump says. Like he's a fascist pagan god of a revolution, of the vanity of his grandeur. As he looks in the mirror, it says on the wall type of narcissistic disorder. There's a difference between democracy and totalitarian, fascist, dictatorial demagoguery. And if it comes to unraveling the United States Union and Europe for Trump's vanity, and I have to deal with the fallout of nuclear war because of Trump, I will bring the whole world order down on his shoulders. And he will never feel the fear of destruction to hold him accountable at the Higgs. The same way fascist leaders towards the end of World War II were scared. Mussolini was jumping into trucks, putting wigs on, trying to sneak out the country before the Italians held him accountable for his fascism. Hitler hiding in a bunker, drinking arsenic pills, dancing the last dance, just because he didn't want to stay accountable to what was about to happen and unfold, with the repercussions lashing back to his actions as he got surrounded underneath his bunker. He didn't want to stand trial, so he killed himself. There's a difference, Justice Garland, between Biden and Trump, and anybody can distinguish between that difference. Anybody with common sense can distinguish between that difference.